Welcome, everybody. It's a brand new week of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. It's Monday, the 6th of May, and we're back for more action today. And like every Monday, I'm Ross Benjamin, by the way, and I'm joined by fellow sports betting experts, Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com, Mr. Chip Chirimbes of GamblersWorld.net, and me as well of GamblersWorld.net, our sponsor site, by the way, where when you go there, folks, and you purchase from any of the 10 great handicappers, not only me and Chip, but 8 others, we will guarantee your picks, which simply means that if you do not win or make a profit on your single game or multi-game daily packages or subscription plans of 30 days or fewer, we will credit your account the exact amount of what you took out of your pocket to pay for that. So there you have it, GamblersWorld.net. Doug, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ross. And as it turns out, the calendar turning to May has been a positive development. 13-6 so far this month, so that's very good. And a variety of sports things going well. NHL 5-0 run, NBA 7-3. Props still doing well. The only thing that wasn't good was the horses. Okay, with especially the Kentucky Derby. That was a rough one.
I told you I like Forever Young. I love that name of that horse.
Yes,
lost by a nostril.
And who knows? If you probably saw the highlights, it was all over yesterday. It was a little bit on Saturday, but not much. Forever Young and the Sierra Leone, they collided. I mean, and they violently collided down the home stretch.
Really?
Yes, and there was no penalty called. It should have been on Sierra Leone on that one. So who knows? Forever Young might have won. Okay, but Mystic Dan, I outsmarted myself. Had the second best. I probably mentioned on the show had the second best rating, speed rating, and guess what? It did the job. So but it was an exciting race and good for the trainer and the I don't know if you know the jockey and the trainer won both the Kentucky Oaks, which is the female version of the Derby, and then the Derby that team won both, and that's the first time that happened since 1952. I
did not know that, but it certainly made my day, Doug.
I thought it might. That's what I'm here for. Hey, if Chip can deliver what's gone on in history, I can bring up something.
Yeah, Chip's going to deliver. I know he's going to deliver because he's going to tell us what's happened in the world of sports on this date, May the 6th. Chipper, tell me how it goes.
Well, the first thing I say, I don't know all that much about horse racing, but that was a great ride. He busted out on the inside and came between horses. I think he had the shortest distance of any horse in that race and won by a nose. So it was a great ride in that response. But May 6th, here we go. Are you ready, Ross? We got it. Today is the greatest living ball player's birth date. This is Willie Mays, is 93 today. And boy, oh boy, there's something else that's in tune in Major League Baseball. Today in 1915, many call the greatest player in baseball history, Babe Ruth hit his very first home run as the Red Sox beat the New York Yankees, and Babe Ruth was on the mound for that game.
Yep.
I can tell you in 1954, Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. He was a Brit, of course, for the first time. And finally, I'm going to give you Kerry Wood, 20 strikeouts, a one-hitter in 1998 for the Chicago Cubs. That's it for May 6th. But I'm proudest of Willie Mays because he's always been my baseball idol.
Say hey, Willie Mays.
Hey.
Yeah, you know that famous catch he made at the Polo Grounds, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Chip, where he had his back to the play and caught it right over his shoulder. Just underrated ball player by modern day standards right now. Why I say that is because I don't think a lot of people, young people, realize how good a player Willie Mays was, and he hit over 600 career home runs as well, right? So
60, he retired number 2 when he got out, and played much of his went into the service, and he played much of his early career in San Francisco in Seal Stadium, where the wind was blowing in, and he had to go to right field to hit home runs. He had only 29 the first year he was in San Francisco in 1958, and still ended up at 660. But that's not to mention Ted Williams, who spent 5 years in the service. I mean, let's go somewhere else.
Yeah. That's what. Who knows how many career hits he would have had. Great hitter, that's for sure.
Yeah.
In any event, Chipper, how'd you do over the weekend, and what's been going on?
I have to apologize to my my loyal followers with my megabucks because the matchups just weren't there and the numbers weren't there. And I passed 2 to 3 days on the weekend. I just didn't see it, and I was 0 for 1 in the last 3 days. So I'm looking to pick up the megabucks, but it has to be there, Ross. I'm not going to just give it out for the sake of giving it out. I like it to be a best bet and something that's worthy. So the A play is back up on the board, and log on, and you'll be able to get today's big game winner.
There you go. Chip Chirimbes over at gamblersworld.net. The A play, Megabucks play. It's his best bets. And he does awfully well with those selections. Over the weekend, I dabbled into Major League Baseball, and I'm sorry I did on Saturday, and that only I went 0-3, but I got crushed. I mean, I was not even close. And then I lost my NHL play yesterday on the Carolina Hurricanes, but my NBA, just an average 2-2 over the last 3 days, but folks, still right now in the NBA, 15-3 with my last 18, 27-7 with my last 34, and 33-11 with my last 44 in the NBA. You can get my NBA playoff package still right now for just $195. It'll take you right through the NBA Finals. Same thing with Chipper and everybody else at the site. Same identical package, same price. And folks, again, we got 3 rounds left of the NBA playoffs. Since 2022, I'm hitting 63% of my NBA postseason picks, 93-54. And when it's that big a sample size and that high of a win percentage, at some point, you got to confess it's not a fluke. So again, folks, take advantage of that offer. $195 will get you the rest of the NBA postseason for myself and Chip over at gamblersworld.net right through the NBA Finals. All right, Doug. Any observations you saw over the weekend in the NBA playoffs that you want to share, and then you can get right into your 2 prop picks.
Sure. Nothing in particular. The only thing that I had Cleveland yesterday, and this is not, let's just say, it's not an exceptional thing I noticed, but one of the reasons that I took Cleveland yesterday is I went back and I was doing some research, and besides the fact that the home team had won each game in that series up to that point and finished the deal, the other aspect of it, the team that had the highest 3-point percentage in each game also had won each game, and as it turned then, so over 7 games they covered. Now yesterday's was a little different because Orlando just started out blistering hot behind the arc, and Cleveland couldn't throw it in Lake Erie, nearby Lake Erie in this case. But then it turned around, and it ended up that Cleveland actually shot a higher percentage of threes than in their comeback than what Orlando did. And, Orlando just looked like a younger team, in the second half. That was really they were talking about playoff experience. And yeah, it definitely counts for something, but I think it definitely showed up yesterday. But a good experience for that team going forward, I thought.
Yeah, and I was on Orlando yesterday.
Okay.
So, again, I was quite disappointed to see them blow that 18-point lead in the first half, but in the NBA, an 18-point lead in the first half seems to mean nothing. Okay. But yeah, look, give Cleveland credit. They held serve on their home floor. They earned a home court advantage in that series, and it paid dividends for them. So Chipper, anything that you want to share in terms of what you witnessed over the weekend?
I also had Orlando. I didn't have him as a top play, considering that the home court was good in all 6 previous games. But, when you have an 18-point lead and you lose by 12, there should be some way you can stop a 30-point difference between that point and the end of the game. And Orlando just didn't have it. And I think what Doug said, their youth had a lot to do with it. I think they gained leaps and bounds this season compared to the previous seasons. And, it's good to see fresh blood out there. And I think there's better things in store for Orlando. And, I guess that number 1 pick they made a couple of years ago when they're taking the point guard really, really spelled the difference for this franchise.
Yeah, they're going to have to improve their 3-point shooting. I know that. I think was a major enigma for them all season long. Yeah. And I'm sure they'll address that. And it certainly probably was the ultimate difference in this series was Cleveland's ability to knock down threes, especially like Doug just alluded to. They started out hot from 3, Orlando, and then they tailed off, and Cleveland ended up with a better percentage rate from the 3-point line. So, all right, Doug, what about your two props for today? We're looking at the games between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets. Right now, Minnesota with a 1-game lead in that series after taking game 1 in Denver. And then the opening game of the series, which I'm looking forward to, is the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers. I think that could be an extremely intriguing and interesting series.
Yeah, I would agree on both points here. Now, so far, other than I think the first time I did props, haven't done so well on props. So I'm going back to my thing that I have done actually for my own plays all year long, sticking with the basics. Okay, and primarily for me and with NBA props is rebounds. So that's what I'm going to stick with. So in game 1, we got the Indiana and the Knicks, as was mentioned, and Isaiah Hartenstein, he has been like I hate to go this direction exactly, but Energizer Bunny for the Knicks. I mean, he comes in, he high energy player, great effort across the board. He's able to score around the basket. He's not a great defender, picks up a lot of fouls, but he pushes, he shoves, he does whatever it takes to help his team. So I think that's really big. Now, as far as rebounds, though, in the series against Philadelphia, the highest number that he had was 9 rebounds. As of this morning, okay, his rebound total was 9.5. Now, I think part of the reason that it's a little bit higher is the fact that Indiana takes more shots than what the Knicks do. So there's the potential for more rebounds. But in looking at his last 16 games that Hartenstein has played, including the playoff games, only 3 times in those 16 games has he had as many as 10 rebounds. So I'm going to go under the 9.5 for Hartenstein for rebounds.
Yeah, boy, Hartenstein just seems to typify the Knicks. You know what I mean? A guy that's not flashy, a guy that knows his role, stays within his lane, and a bunch of players like that on the Knicks, Chipper. You know what I mean? So without getting into details, just Isaiah Hartenstein and that style of player for the New York Knicks.
Well, I think the Knicks, the balance of the Knicks have, and they have Jalen Brunson, of course, leading the playoffs in scoring, 35.5 points a game. But overall, I mean, Hart's contributing. Everyone seems to contribute. 9.5 rebounds seems like a big number to me. And if his average is only 9, I'm wondering why it isn't 8.5 as opposed to 9.5. So that's one of the reasons I don't do props, by the way, and I get caught in the switches.
Yeah, so Doug likes he's our guy on props. He's going to take Isaiah Hartenstein under his rebound total of 9.5. All right, Doug, the Denver game, again, the Minnesota Timberwolves really showed their wares in game 1 with a 106-99 win over the Nuggets. And Anthony Edwards is proving to everybody he's one of the best players, if not the best player in the NBA right now. But anyway, we're going to look at a prop for you in this game and take it away, my friend.
Absolutely. Okay. So the one thing that was telling was in the press conference after game 1, Jokic, they asked him what he would do different, okay, in the loss. And he says, well, I'd clone myself, okay, because going up against all those Minnesota big guys certainly had an impact on his game and how the team actually played. In that game, he only had 8 rebounds. Now, he averages 12.4 for the season, but he only had 8. And if you go and look at the regular season games against Minnesota, he had 10, 11, and 10, and now with the 8. Sports books have this, though. They kept him basically at his average, 12.5. I just think in this situation, I think that the desperation now that Denver has to play for, him being the leader of the team, I think he's going to give a supreme effort tonight and just go all out. And if you include that game, he has gone over 12.5 in 10 of his last 13 games. So again, given the importance of the game, I think he reaches 13 and maybe even beyond that. So I'm going to go over 12.5 for Jokic for rebounds.
All right, there you have it, folks. Doug's 2 prop plays are Isaiah Hartenstein to go under 9.5 rebounds, and the Joker to go over 12.5 rebounds. Doug says it's going to be a do or die, not do or die, but an urgent situation for Denver. They certainly don't want to go down 2-0, and I don't want to take Chipper's thunder away here because he's going to cover this game right now. And Chip, you certainly don't want to fall behind 2-0 in the series, right? But that doesn't mean Denver can't win because in not cover, because the side right now, Denver's -5.5, and the total's 207. And boy, oh boy, can Minnesota put back-to-back games together? They were awfully impressive in game one. Anthony Edwards, especially, and Doug made a good point, Chipper, how Jokic, the Joker, had a tough time, tougher than normal anyway, because of the size of Minnesota, Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. So what's your take on this one, my man? Because right now, Denver 5.5, 207.
Well, I'm a little sick about this matchup to start with, because as soon as these were determined that it was going to be Minnesota and Denver, I said, wow, I like Minnesota to win this matchup. I like them to win opening game. And the closer I got to it, I said, it's too easy. It's too logical. I mean, Minnesota's playing so well. They went to, and what's happened? I switched sides, and now I'm caught in the switches. I took Denver, and that was a loss, and that's the kind of loss that plays on your head. And so now I'm confused as to what side I would take in the game, and I'm going to pass the game. But I do have a total on this game, and I think it's kind of obvious. I mean, Minnesota's 44-43 over on the year, and Denver, who desperately needs this game, of course, has 35-52. So the Nuggets are probably going to want to play to their pace and keep this game under. A few other things about it. Denver is sixth in the NBA in defense. And boy, I don't know if anybody's defense can stop this Anthony Edwards. Ross, is he 22? Is he under 22 years old?
Yeah,
This kid is just like, I mean, he's the nuts out there as far as I'm concerned. And he's an offensive machine. I think Denver has to do something to sort of slow him down. But the total on this game at 206 or 207 in that area is a good 7-8 points below what the total has been for these two matched up this season. During the regular season, they averaged 222.5, and during the playoffs, they've averaged 213.7, and now it's even lower. I think this game is destined to stay under the total, and I think it's going to have to be dictated by Denver's defense, which is the way they're going to have to play in order to defeat Minnesota. And to tell you the truth, from what we saw the other day, I don't know if they can beat Minnesota by this number. This is a shallow number at 5.5 for the defending champions at home. So I'm going to play the game under the total, and I'm really like in a scrambled eggs as far as which side to take.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, the number to me is an honest one. Minnesota is really good on the road this year, really good, period. And Denver lost for only their 9th time all season at home. So Chip likes Denver, Minnesota under 207.
Yeah.
Doug, I am going to look at a different angle on this and looking at Denver's team total, which is currently 105.5. And why I'm looking at that is because the Nuggets were held to 99 points in game one. And that's a scoop because that's only the 9th time all season long they've been held to less than 100 points scored in a game. And their following game after being held to 100 this year, 8 times in their 8 games that applies to this season, they averaged over 116 points per game. And the other part of the equation is Denver has scored 106 points or more in 79 of 88 games this year. That's 89% of the time. So I like Denver's team total as a free play for myself, over 105.5. That won't be a premium play, folks, but just a strong opinion play for me. And that doesn't mean the game can't go under. I mean, it could be a 110-90 game in favor of Denver. You never know. But in any event, Doug, that's my take on what I see as my play in that game.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on that point, Ross. I think that Denver, definitely comes to play, and the other part is the great minds think alike. Because what Chip did, what he talked about with Minnesota, well, I did the exact same thing. I talked myself out of taking Minnesota in game one, so that didn't help at all. But as opposed to Ross, who had the under, I had the over in the game, so it was kind of felt like losing 2 games at once. But anyways, in this one, I just think Denver, I think this is a desperate game for them. 0-2, losing both games at home. I think the series is 100% over. I just don't think. I don't care how good they are, how good they were. Jamal Murray compromised with that calf injury certainly plays a part, I think, in this whole equation. Is he going to get 100% healthy? Probably unlikely, but like the other game one, he didn't score a single point in the first half, but he scored 17 in the second half. So probably loosened up, felt a little bit better, got a little bit more comfortable. I think Mike Malone, their coach, really has made a very valid point to anybody that's following this closely. He said he's basically sick and tired of his team not coming out in the playoffs with the intensity to start games. They were down 18-4. Yeah, they came back and had the lead by the end of the quarter, but just that lack of intensity at the beginning. I think this team really comes to play early. Plus, I like the fact that home favorites in the playoffs, the 3.5 to 9.5, like Denver in the second game of a series, 26-7. I'm going to take Denver minus the 5.5 in this one.
All right, so there's Doug's opinion, but our official play for Mr. Chirimbes is the under 207. Doug, you make a good point in terms of the comments that Mike Malone made. I'll say this. I'm not making excuses for Denver, but, this is a team that feels like they could win no matter how many points they get down. Secondly, in the Lakers series, they were going against a team. They went into that series having beaten that team 10 straight times. So, that might have something to do with the lack of intensity. I really believe that they'll come out much more focused here in this game, just for the fact that I think the reality is setting in that Minnesota is really good. And this is a team that if you're not on top of your game, you're not going to win the series. Defending world champion or not, more experience in the playoffs or not, you're not going to win the series unless you're on top of your game, because this is a really good team. You mentioned Anthony Edwards too, Chipper, not an offensive force, but man, oh man, people don't realize how good he is defensively too. And they were mentioning it on the broadcast. He may be the best two-way player in the game right now.
And this team played a good stretch, 6 weeks without Karl Anthony Towns, and still ended up missing the best record in the West by one game. And, they're unheralded. I mean, Minnesota have been waiting for this to happen for years for them to finally get there. And it looks like they may have reached that point. If they win this series, I think they're a threat to win it all.
So on this date, May 6th, 2024, Chip Chirimbes likes the under 207. And we'll talk about that in future years on May 7th. And
May 6th.
May 6th. Yes, May 6th. Anyway, all right, let me get to my game, and then we could wrap things up here. All right, so it's the Knicks in Indiana, at Madison Square Garden tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. The Knicks right now, 5.5-point favorite, and total 217. And two teams that are very elated to be at this point because the Pacers hadn't made the playoffs for 5 years. And I don't believe, and probably Chip can answer this, or Doug maybe, that I don't think the Knicks have been to the second round in like 18 years, if I'm not mistaken. So uncharted waters for both of these teams. So the Knicks 4-1-1 to the over in the series against Philadelphia, and 7-0-1 to the over in their last 8 at home, 15-2-2 to the over in their last 19 overall. So, I mean, again, the Knicks have a reputation as a slow-paced team, and the statistics and the analytics will bear that out. But, their totals aren't sky high as opposed to other teams' totals because of that pace of play, and also because they've been very good defensively since Thibodeau has taken over as the head boss over in New York. Indiana 4-2 to the over in the series against Milwaukee, but they scored 120 points or more in 4 of the last 5 games in that series. Speaking about overruns, the Indiana Pacers are on one themselves as they've gone 9-2 to the over in their last 11. This is also an Indiana Pacers team, the highest scoring team in basketball through regular season action. And they've also shot 51% or better from the field in 9 of their last 13 games. 3 regular season meetings this year, 2 of them went over the total, and the combined average score in those 3 games, 239.5. Indiana in those three contests shot 52.6% from the field and 47.6% from beyond the three-point line against a very good defensive team like the Knicks. So whatever they're doing offensively against the Knicks during regular season action, we'll see if it translates tonight. I don't know if they'll shoot that good as with the numbers I just mentioned. I still think they'll shoot pretty good. And the Knicks in those three games, Indiana sends teams to the free throw line more than the average bear. And the Knicks in the three games, 25 free throw attempts per contest. And they also got the Knicks to speed up. And the Pacers are extremely good at that. The Knicks averaged 92.7 field goal attempts per game in those three matchups. And that's high even by NBA standards. So, again, I think this shapes up to, we're not talking about a huge total at 217.5. It is huge in the fact that a lot of the NBA totals right now in the postseason have been 210 or less. But I think, they're begging you to take the under here, and I'm going to go over the total. I'm going to go Pacers Knicks over the total of 217. My boy Jim Quinn, owner who I gave my pick to before so he could do the graphics, says I'm very bold, and I'll never deny that. Chipper?
Well, yes, I'm a veteran of this, I think, and the last time the Knicks made it, I can't even remember, other than the fact that I know they did win in 1969 with Willis Reed leading the hill. But this is the best Knicks team I've seen in decades. Even Carmelo Anthony, and I think they're better than the Ewing teams as well. I mean, their balance and their defense, and like you said, as far as the scoring goes, I'm a numbers guy completely. And Ross, when I looked at the numbers of this, they met three times during the regular season. 237.5, 235.5, 247.5. And now we come to the playoffs where defense is paramount. This is the first meeting, and it's down to 217. I think that drop is so strong that I think this game is supposed to go under the total. I mean, we've got Halliburton, who is a scoring machine for Indiana. Are they the number one scoring team or close to it?
Yeah, and they average over 122 a game.
Right. I mean, they're out there, and it's just, my gut feeling is I'd have to play it under because of that number of 217, when during the regular season, the lowest number they had was 235. They had a 248.5 in those three meetings. So they had gone four straight over in the last two under in their meetings. So I'm going to play under on this one. And it's certainly not with any bravado, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I could see your point, but our official play is going to be mine, which is over 217. But Chip, no problem with that. He's disagreeing with me. And hey, that's what makes this show great. We're not trying to two-side you folks.
It shows we're not in cahoots with what we're doing here.
Exactly. We're not kissing each other's.
Our personal opinion is on the game.
Yeah, we're not kissing each other's behind. And one guy I know will never be accused of doing that with me is Doug. Doug, what's your take, my man?
Well, I'm going to let you guys struggle over the total here. I'm going to go with the side on this one. And the thing that I noticed these teams, Indiana won two of the three games, and the two games that they won went over, and the one game went under, and that was the game the Knicks won. If you remember, and I do because I said it in the last Philadelphia and New York series, I said that I thought the road team would win at least three times. That's exactly what happened. I believe the same thing will happen in this series. Okay. And obviously it needed to go probably at least 6 games for that to occur. But I do think the same thing will happen because I think there's the imbalance of the two teams in regards to so offensive minded with Indiana and very poor defensive minded. And the Knicks, kind of basically the opposite to that end. But I think in game one, I think with it at Madison Square Garden, with that crowd, everything, a new experience for Indiana in this one, I think it'll be to the advantage of the Knicks. And the last 25 times the Knicks have faced a team that has a shooting percentage defense of 48% or worse, they have won that game by 9.6 points per game. I'll take New York minus the 5.5.
Yeah, well, there's a good, again, I said before the playoffs started, I thought, watch out for the Knicks. I thoroughly believe they could make a run to the NBA or the Eastern Conference Finals at least. And they're on path to do so, but don't count Indiana out. Chipper, I watch this team play, and not only do they share the ball better than any team in the NBA, in my opinion, especially down the stretch and into the playoffs, but they're extremely athletic. You got a guy like Miles Turner, who Doug gave out as a prop play last week, that 6'11", he can knock down threes. So they could beat you in a lot of ways offensively. And I think I don't know if they're as bad defensively as the statistics would bear out, more so than the fact that they like to play that up-tempo style. And when you play that style, you're going to give up some easy baskets sometimes just because and you're going to increase the other team's offensive possessions per game, which, look, the Knicks are not a team that's averaging 92 field goal attempts per game on the season. All right. If you look at the pace of play and tempo, adjusted offensive tempo, I should say, in the analytics department in the NBA, the Knicks are one of the slowest teams in the league. So we'll see what happens tonight. I'm really looking forward to this series, and I'm really looking forward to see if how Denver responds tonight. And is Minnesota going to be okay? The worst we could do here is a split and either play loosely or lack the intensity they did in game one. So a lot of unknowns going into these matchups. Before we wrap up, Doug, any final thoughts you want to share with the audience?
Well, I'll just say this is tonight. I have a 7-unit best bet going tonight in one of the NBA games, and that's available at the Doug Upstone page at Doc Sports. Like I mentioned earlier, won 7 of my last 10 in the NBA. Look to make it 8 out of 11 tonight.
There you go, Mr. Upstone, DocSports.com. He's the only guy who's not on GamblersRule.net because he's contracted by Doc Sports, and like I've said many times, Docs has been in business for 53 years, folks, based out of Las Vegas. You don't last this long in this business unless you're doing something right. Some great handicappers there, but of course, Mr. Upstone is our most favorite of them all. So visit Docs and support Mr. Upstone because he wins a lot more than he loses. I can tell you that, folks. Anyway, speaking of winning more than they lose, Mr. Chirimbes, what more can you share with the audience in terms of what they can look forward to Mr. Chip Chirimbes' picks this week? And again, reminding them about how well you do with your Megabucks plays, which is the equivalent of best
bet. Thank you for that, Ross. And
yep.
Although I've only posted 1 Megabucks in the last 4 days, I'm still 10-4 in the NBA playoffs and really looking to build on that. So, right now we come down, we have 1 or 2 games each and every day, and we're able to concentrate and get all the information that we've garnered from the entire year. The big games and the big money are on the line. And I say, go with the big game player. Get the A play from Chip Chirimbes.
There you go, Mr. Chip Chirimbes over at GamblersWorld.net. Again, folks, $195 will get you the rest of the NBA postseason from Chip right through the NBA playoffs. You can't beat that with a stick. You could also get the same thing from me over at GamblersWorld.net. And again, folks, I'm going to repeat this again. This postseason, 22-7 in the NBA, and that includes 15-3 with my last 18. And also going back to the end of the regular season, 33-11 with my last 44 in the NBA. That's 75%, 195 for a run. Come on. Obviously I know what I'm doing at this point. 195 might be a good price to try to dabble in and make some money. Anyway, it's always a pleasure, guys. And Doug will be back with Chip on Thursday. I have a medical thing that I need to be done on Thursday. So I will be missing on Thursday, one of the rare days I'm not on the show, but I'm sure Mr. Upstone and Mr. Chirimbes, they're probably saying under their breath, good, I can get some words in edgewise. Anyway, they will be with you on Thursday. I'll be back tomorrow morning with Jesse Schule and Sean Higgs. Sean Higgs and Jesse Schule again on Wednesday. And don't forget our live show on Friday. 1 p.m. Eastern time with Jesse Schule and Sean Higgs right here on our network. And again, don't forget to give us a like. It's just a small token of your appreciation for the work, time, and effort we put in. And it goes a long way with management to make them happy. And it's, again, folks, you go out to dinner and you leave after a good meal, you leave a tip. We're not asking you for money. We're asking for you just hit the like button. That's our tip. Anyway, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So 100% free, 100% free. And while you do so, go into your YouTube settings and click on that alert notification bell for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, and you'll be notified immediately upon Mr. Doug Upstone giving his opinions and Mr. Chip Chirimbes giving you historic dates in the world of sports, and then also the ever-present Mr. Sean Higgs and the gentleman himself, Jesse Schule, right here on GamblersWorld.net. Until the next time, take care and God bless, folks.